So I guess we'll just move on to a new point now. I wanted to ask a little bit about when you were part of Jeff Tate's Queensryche and what sort of drew you to that project.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I have a personal history with the band due to the that they Queensryche was the opening band for Quiet Riot in 1983 when we did a short headlining tour uh, across Texas, the Southwest. And they had just released an EP, Queen of the Reich.
Yeah,
And so, I got to know all the guys, and I'm a fan. I've been a fan of the band ever since because I could see what their vision that they
yeah,
had, you know, and which really, to me, it really manifested itself in albums like Operation Mindcrime.
yeah,
That was like the first step towards that. It's kind of like the Who coming out with Tommy. They
yeah,
find themselves, like I read Townsend's book that he said that after Tommy, every record they did was a concept album. And I said, I get it. It
yeah.
is exactly what it is. Uh, Funny enough, I was listening to in the car with my wife. I was listening to Next. Oh, who's next? Who's next?
Hmm.
And she goes, "Is this the greatest hits record?" And I go, "No." And she says, "Wow, every song sounds like a hit." And says, "Yeah, it's probably the best commercially meaning that every song just sounds like it's a great song.
Yeah,
It's not somebody's little side project of what a song, I want to do this or I want to express myself this way in this song. No,
yeah,
every song is like, oh my God, this is just drop the needle and sit back and enjoy. It's
yeah,
incredible, So that to me is the epitome. But then again, it's not considered to be a a concept record, but at its origin, it was a concept record. It was about what Townsend called back then, where that was like early 70s, the Matrix.
hmm,
And he writes about this in his book, Who I Am. And I was fascinated by that he had this vision about the internet back then, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so that again going back to Operation Microclimate, it kind of like remind me of something like that. So I get a call from Jeff and his wife who manages the band,
yeah,
and originally it was just going to be me, but then certain members that were invited to participate were not available, so they were looking for a guitar player, and I suggested my brother Robert.
yeah.
And so this became the only time that Robert and I had ever been on an actual tour. So that was a beautiful experience being with him doing that.
How was it touring with obviously Jeff Tate's Queensryche while also the other Queensryche were touring at the same time? Was it almost like a bit weird? Was like, how was that?
I mean, I just took it as business is business. I love, the other version is the official version. And
Yeah.
we do shows together with Quiet Riot. I had the utmost respect for them.
Hmm.
Always have, always will.
Yeah.
And they're a great band, and the new members are great additions to the group. Again, it's a matter of when I joined Jeff Test's version of the band, we're talking before about me adapting my sound and my approach to playing the bass.
Yeah.
When I joined Whitesnake, I did the same thing. When I joined uh, Jeff Tate's version of the band, we were mainly doing all of Operation Mindcrime. And I
Yeah.
listened to the record and I said, you know what? The bass sound, it's a character
Mm.
in the story, the voice of the bass.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? So there was a crew member who was very familiar with the band, who already had a history with the band. He said, well, this is what Eddie used. This Spectre bass is what he
Yeah.
used. So he contacted Spectre on my behalf and they sent me a bass. So that's when I started playing the NS version of the Spectre.
Yeah.
You know, the traditional shape. The
Yeah.
later on, I started playing the Coda version of the bass, which is kind of like a Fender reimagined bass,
Yeah.
but still has that's what I grew up playing. So that's what I'm most comfortable with
Yeah. Yeah.
after all these years. And I try to approximate the personality and the character, the essence of the bass within the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of people don't do that. They do not respect what has been laid out by others that really work hard at getting that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt if I am going to play these songs, it has to sound correctly. It has to have that essence of the bass guitar in it. So, I respect them immensely, and that's what I did.
I think for the fact as well, I mean, I'm a big Queensryche fan as well, but the music is quite different. It's a bit more prog rock than probably what you were sort of playing with the Aussie Quiet Riot and White Snake, and then obviously Dio before. I think it's a little bit of a different genre. So how did you feel?
Um, it's very simple. I'm 74. I've been playing bass before prog rock existed.
Yeah,
So it's all back in the day when you were a musician, you follow the evolution
yeah,
of music itself. And so as a follower of the evolution of going from psychedelia, which included Hendrix, even though I
yeah,
consider Hendrix the architect of metal, some people is Black Sabbath, okay. Because if you're gonna go within the theme, yes, Black Sabbath is the architect of metal because Hendrix did not have the darkness
mm,
of metal.
yeah,
Like he had the psychedelia of it, but it didn't get any heavier than playing guitar than Jimi Hendrix,
yeah,
but that was just one instrument. Whereas Black Sabbath is the collective of the band
yeah,
from Ozzy's voice, opening track of the song Black Sabbath.
yeah,
Pretty scary stuff,
yeah,
especially if you hear that for the first time. Nobody was doing that.
yeah, yeah.
And even the sound of his voice. This is before he started double tracking. It's
Hmm.
just one track of him singing, and it's like, this is scary stuff. you know?
Yeah, yeah,
To all the tones, all the sounds of the instruments on the record, and just the approach and the lyrics, especially. Yeah, you can define that as the birth of metal, you know. And but and then after that we had I was as big a fan of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and Deep Purple as I was a fan of Yes and King Crimson, especially King Crimson. They
yeah,
were ahead of the curve. And then you got Genesis, and then you got Jethro Tull and Gentle Giant and everybody, ELP, one of the most influential bands for me. It's like, yeah. So I grew up with prog rock.
yeah,
I was in a pseudo prog rock band back in the day,
yeah,
because again, it came down to like freedom within a structure. It was a very classical orient, influence structure, but there was a lot of freedom to express yourself, especially in the three-piece bands.
yeah. I mean, he's got a reputation. Maybe he's a little bit of his ego. How was he to be
Oh,
with?
Jeff?
Yeah,
Oh, he was a gentleman, super nice.
yeah. I met him once
Yeah,
before, and he was a really nice dude when I spoke to him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Never conflict at odds with him at all.
he just seemed
Hardworking.
very
He always warmed up every day in the morning. We were
hmm.
traveling in one tour bus, so we would get to our destination, set up shop, backstage, and he would start warming up. He's very dedicated.
Yeah, he seems very like sort of smart and sort of very interested in sort of the digital side of everything. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Everything new
yeah,
he sort of seems into.
yeah. But then again, he was going at a time where I could see that there was a certain shield between him and the band because he was experiencing his own conflict with his previous band.
Yeah.
So sometimes that creates like, well, you start losing trust in people, or being feeling relaxed around certain people because you're just going through this that I never stuck my nose into. This
Yeah.
is his experience. It has nothing to do with me. I'm here to play music,
Yeah.
you know.
If you could, so, I mean, we've kind of gone over a lot of your legacy over the years. If you could look back
Mhm.
on yourself, just starting out, what would you say to yourself? What advice?
I would say, kid, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. And then
No, I
what?
mean, like I mentioned to you that I'm very much in touch with the child,
Yeah,
so I am both. I am I am that kid that I would talk to.
he's still
Still
there.
me. It's
Yeah.
still me. So that kid is actually experiencing what I am experiencing right now
Yeah.
because it's still me. So I really do not need to tell him. He's part of our experience.
Yeah. And then what advice do you have to me about to sort of dive headfirst, finish in uni into the industry fully? Hefty question, I know.
Wow, that is a great question because I don't think me or anybody can really answer that.
Yeah.
This is your own personal journey. And do you have like relatives who have experienced the same thing as you have? And
Not
then
really. I'm
you
sort of,
know,
oh,
are you like the only sibling or sister? Do you
I
have
have a
brother, sister?
sister. I have a sister.
Okay, and how old apart are you guys? How
She's
many
four
years
years
apart?
older than me.
Okay, yeah, I'm the same thing with me and my brother.
Yeah.
Uh, so that might be a part of it, but I have been with my brother that I can actually we start recollect our memories of certain events in our lives,
Yeah.
and they're both different perceptions. Because remember, you are occupying that space and time. It's you.
Yeah.
Even if somebody is right next to you, they're not occupying that pixel
Yeah.
in the whole galaxy or intergalactic experience,
Yeah.
you know. And since we started our conversation about an hour and a half ago,
Hmm.
we have traveled 1.5 million miles
Yeah,
in
we
the
have.
universe.
We really have.
Are we going to be exactly the same? No, we're not. If we do it right, you and I have grown as humans from
I,
having this conversation.
I feel like I really have. I mean, you have such a different outlook on life and sort of everything compared to sort of anybody I've ever spoken to, and it's actually really interesting to think about how you think of things and how you see life.
Yeah, but I've always found it to be, I mean, I learn from other people. I'm very interested in their perception of things.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always do is respect everybody else's perception.
Yeah.
Like the old saying, you're walking in somebody else's shoes, it's the same thing. Your shoes are part of that GPS point
Yeah.
of where you're standing, and you're the only person occupying that point right there, right now. Even if there was somebody sitting next to you, they're not in the same equivalent.
Yeah.
They're not in the same space as you are, and we're not. So it's up to the individual to have. We have free will. You got the free will, and the way that I look at it, we have the free will to do what's right,
Yeah.
God's will, or we have the free will to do whatever we want. That might not necessarily be the right thing to do. And along the way, we make mistakes and we make choices and we learn from both.
Yeah.
So for me to really give advice, it's like I can tell you what works for me, but I also will tell you that it might not work for anybody else.
Yeah.
It just happened to work for me. What worked for me was that I'm blessed to have had a spiritual center before all the crazy stuff started happening.
Yeah.
The roller coaster, before I got into the roller coaster of the music industry, I got a spiritual center. I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a book, and I wrote about it in the book. I only mentioned it once. The book is called Off the Rails,
Yeah.
and I wrote it to answer the number one question, which is what was it like to play with Randy Rhoads? So it's I used to tell people like, a 5 minute encapsulate my experience with Randy Rhoads, and it was never enough. So I
Yeah.
figured, you know what, just going to write about everything that I experienced with Randy. About 20 years ago, I wrote the book, and I've also grown as a human.
Yeah.
But since it's specific to a certain place and time, and also the main subject was Randy, I don't see a need for me to revisit the book and revise it. Uh, so yeah, I can tell you what really gave me a foundation to be able to sustain a career for over 44 years now is the fact that I had a spiritual center.
Hmm.
When I was at my lowest material, living, sleeping on Kevin DeBro's floor before I got the call to join Ozzy, I made peace with God that as long as my fingers kept moving, I was going to keep playing, but my relationship with God was more important than anything else.
Hmm.
And that if I never made it, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. And I let go.
Yeah.
I let go, and immediately this sense of peace came upon me.
Well, I think that's a beautiful note to kind of finish on. I've asked you sort of all the questions I had for you, but I just want to finish with saying how grateful I am to happen to speak to you and learn from you right now and hear all these wonderful stories about, some of my favorite musicians and yourself. And thank you for inspiring me and for continuing to do so as well.
And thank you for allowing me to grow as a human being due to the wonderful questions that you asked me.
Thank you. Well, thank you for
Thank you.
helping me grow and then hopefully helping me get a good degree in my.
I hope you do too.
I've absolutely loved hearing everything you've had to say, and I
Okay.
am so grateful. Like, thank you so much.
And please give my best at everybody at Leeds. It's
I
also
will
a very
do.
special place in my heart.
Well, thank you so much, Rudy. I'll let you get going with your
Thank you,
busy,
Rachel.
busy
God
life.
bless you.
Thank you.
God
God
bless you.
bless you, Rudy. See you later.
Okay. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.